This past November, we saw the return of the Assassin's Creed franchise after a short hiatus from the yearly release cycle that's plagued most AAA franchises. Assassin's Creed Origins, now with 100% more Egypt, tells the story of E. Bayek, a Bradford-born falconer with some sort of revenge mission in Egypt, and the formation of the Assassin's Order. During his historical sightseeing tour, we undoubtedly meet some important historical people, take part in some major historical events, and visit some very historically significant sites. History. All riveting stuff, I'm sure. But during the hype train for Ubisoft's latest roof jumping simulator, I couldn't shake the feeling that no lessons had been learned from the franchise's decline. All the causes of the aforementioned hiatus still looked to be present. Gamers had complained that previous games had been buggy, unfinished, busy work-laden vehicles for microtransactions, dubious pre-order practices and merchandising. What we got with Origins was a buggy, unfinished, busy work-laden vehicle for microtransactions, dubious pre-order practices and merchandising. And all this really saddened me. I used to really quite enjoy the Assassin's Creed franchise. Between me and the missus, we had bought the first 6 major releases on the 360. AC1, AC2, this time it's Italy, AC 2.5, AC 2.75, AC3, this time with added snoozefest, and AC4, this time with added boats. All of which were pretty good games. Well, mostly. This got me thinking, where did it all go so horribly wrong? Just after Assassin's Creed 2, obviously, but I still enjoyed some of the later games, in particular Black Flag. Yeah, Black Flag, that was amazing. So I decided rather than buy Origins, I would re-buy Black Flag for the PC and play it through again in glorious 1080p. And I hated it. Absolutely hated, loathed, despised, wanted to gouge my eyes out with rusty spoons, abhorred it. But we'll get to that. First, let's talk about how we got to Black Flag, and get an idea of what led to such a dumpster fire being hailed as a return to form for the series, with a view of working out how Ubisoft can actually save this franchise, rather than just wait a year then release another dump with wings to flap around our collective conscious. This is going to take a while because there's a lot to unpack here, so grab a drink, put your feet up and settle in. Assassin's Creed was launched in 2007 to an optimistic reception from both gamers and press alike. It was a very good looking game for the time, and it had an interesting premise with some cool new ideas. The assassin's hidden blade, the leap of suicide, no wait, there's a hay bale, were all new concepts, and it was a new idea to have players parkouring around historic rooftops while being all ninja-like, but not in feudal Japan. I mean, this is all good stuff. What was not so good was the endless tedium that was the Desmond Miles plotline. Hey Ubisoft, do you know what's fun? Running across rooftops, leaping off buildings, stabbing dudes in the neck, and just generally going through bad guys like a dose of salts and looking badass while you're doing it. Do you know what's not fun? Lying down. Being told to lie down, walking about then lying down, asking questions and lying down, just all this, it's just dull. It's dull, it's tedious, it completely ruins the pacing, it was just all downright bad. I will throw them a bone here though. I can see where they were going with this. The idea of memories and experiences being locked away in our DNA is quite a cool idea, if a little pretentious. It opens up the opportunity to bounce about through history for later games without having to give any thoughts about why we are there and what's happened between the two plot points, and it provides an anchor point to flow through the games, holding them together whilst allowing the developers to just kind of think, well, when would be a cool period to set the next game? I'm still not sure why that anchor point had to be so boring. 2 years later, we got a sequel that did what all good sequels should do. It refined all the existing mechanics, added a few more, and polished the foundations laid out in the previous title to a mirror shine. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on AC2. You play as Ezio Formaggio or something, in a romp across Renaissance Italy, righting wrongs, befriending Leonardo DiCaprio, and just generally being the roguish one from an early 2000s boy band. The reason I'm not going to dwell too much on this one is because it's the one which Ubisoft got right. It's far from perfect, but it's really close, and this is the one that I'm going to be referring back to a lot later on in the video. Basically, if you haven't played it, get it, play it, it's cheap, on 360 or PS3, it's like £2 or £3 or something. It's definitely worth your time. And this is where the rot sets in. The next 2 years saw 2 new half-sequels called Brotherhood and Revelations, neither of which did anything to further the franchise. The mechanics were polished enough so they didn't need fixing, and all the mechanics that were added were completely superfluous. They were either extensions of existing mechanics, or complete dumpster fires that were ultimately dropped for later titles. In Brotherhood, they added the ability to recruit assassins to your cause, who could be either sent out on missions outside the confines of the playable game world, or could be called in during gameplay to assist Ezio Autistico. In Revelations, they added a tower defense minigame. I mean, seriously? A tower defense minigame? I mean, who proposed that idea in the design meeting? And why did nobody else say that's a really dumb idea? I mean, the whole idea of recruiting people to the cause and training them up to be killers in a big showdown with the Templars at the end of the game, as alluded to in the trailer, is a wicked idea. I mean, it was very poorly executed and a complete waste of everyone's time, but a tower defense minigame? I mean, why? 2012 saw the release of AC3, Last of the Merovingian. No, Bear, Dances but Drools. And this is where the stink from the rot really starts to take hold. Not only was it subject to the now yearly release schedule, further strain was added by the fact that they wanted to have the game released in time to capitalise on the 2012 end of the world fad that was integral to Desmond's story. They also doubled down on all of the tedious, undeveloped middle management sims of previous games. You could now recruit tradesmen to work on your homestead, to craft goods, to sell on the open market, and you had trade routes that you could expand by doing naval missions, and I'm sorry, what? This is an Assassin's Creed game, right? Not City Skyline or Democracy 3, but Assassin's Creed. Right, these kind of management sims are their own niche and require like serious amounts of research and effort to get right. There's like lots and lots of fine tuning is required, with systems interacting with other systems that are affected by tweaks of small variables, sometimes are like 3 or 4 systems removed. You can't just bolt this kind of thing on to your running, jumping, stabbing sim and expect it to produce anything other than a pointless, shallow distraction. Still, the naval mechanics might have some sea legs. So, what else did AC3 have to offer? Well, the free running mechanics work best on large geometric structures with lots of verticality. High, closely knitted streets with lots of straight edges are the order of the day. So, Ubisoft decided to set AC3 in 18th century Boston, a time of small wooden structures that are spread quite far apart. And they also added tree climbing mechanic, which resulted in linear paths through non-geometric structures, allowing for no self-expression or freedom of movement. Then there was the personality vacuum of the main character, a plot that lended heavily on just being present during historical events, and combat mechanics that were so OP there was little to no point trying to stay stealthy because you could just polish off an entire garrison quicker than your mum. I think the box art depicts it best. AC1, you have a hooded figure blending in with the crowd. AC2, you have a hooded figure emerging from the crowd. AC3, you have a hooded figure on a guy holding him down while he bashes his skull in with an axe. And that brings us to Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag. The series was at a low point and something drastic needed to be done to win back player confidence. But they did have an ace up their sleeve. When I was playing Black Flag for the 360, I loved it. I put somewhere in the region of 60 hours into it, upgrading my ship, finding treasure, and just generally being a pirate. When I finished it and I stepped away, I remember as time went on I became more and more conflicted about the game, the more and more I thought about it. I was looking forward to the second playthrough on the PC immensely, both to try and square away my opinion on this game, but more importantly because I remembered just how much I enjoyed it. Would I be able to bring my feelings about this game into sharp focus, or would I still feel as mixed as I did the last time I played? Things did not start well. While I was initially impressed at how well a game from 2013 was holding up on the visual side of things, the frame rate was another matter. In the opening battle I was getting FPS around the mid-40s with occasional dips down to the 30s. Okay, I thought maybe this section isn't as well optimised as it could be. It's a fairly scripted section at the beginning of the game, and the players are only really going to see this bit once. I'm sure once the game starts proper, it'll pick up. But oh, how wrong I was. Running around the first explorable area in the game, the frame rate plummeted to the mid to low 20s. With inconsistent frame timings to boot, it was making the game nearly unplayable. I dived into the menus and turned God rays down to low and the anti-aliasing down from 8 times to the lightweight FXAA option. With that, I got the game hovering around 60 at 1080p, but it was far from locked and the frame timing issue would be persistent. Running around any of the built up areas in the game would cause stuttering and frame drops down to the low 50s. I know for a fact that my system is more than capable of handling a title of AC's detail on ultra settings at 1080 without dropping anywhere lower than like the 80s. In built up areas in GTA 5 it's pulling 80 to 100 with everything maxed out. And in Bioshock Infinite, a game that was released the same year as AC4, it was locked at 144 all the way through. So for Black Flag to be struggling to maintain 60 screams of a really rushed and lazy port. I know it might sound a little odd starting a thorough look at a game with the frame rates, but how a game runs is a fundamental component. You could have the best game in the world, but if it runs like Stephen Hawking sings, it's all for naught. Having said all that, visually the game does hold up surprisingly well. The oceans look spectacular with some excellent weather effects, and the foliage looks dense and really top notch. I didn't come across any noticeably bad textures, and pretty much all of the character animations are on point. I did notice a fair bit of shadow flicker, but texture popping was an awful lot better than I was expecting. Asset popping, on the other hand, was rampant, with NPCs phasing into existence before your very eyes at an alarming regularity. Minor, and sometimes even major technical issues can be swept aside as long as a game has either an excellent story or excellent moment-to-moment gameplay. And on the story front, Black Flag falls woefully short as well. Now, this section is going to contain some spoilers, so if you want to skip ahead, I'll put up a timestamp so that you can skip to it and avoid any plot spoilers. So you start out as Kenway on a ship that's under attack. After a brief battle in which both ships are scuttled, some assassin dude jumps on board and does the whole death from above on your captain, shortly before the ships blow up, throwing Kenway into the Big Blue. Flashback time. It's now that we find out Kenway's principal motivation for the whole game. Money. He's got himself a missus and he wants to make a better life for them both. She agrees to let him go off pirating as long as he promises that he's only going to be gone for a couple of years.
Alright, no more than 2. Promise me.
Never actually promises there. So, wake up on a beach with the assassin from before. He says he wants to go to Havana, you have a few cross words, and off he trots into the wilderness. Kenway goes chasing off after him, and wait a chuffing second. This is just some sailor, right? Because he's like parkouring it up like a fully trained assassin, and he can do like the whole synchronizing from like the eagle's nest and the leap of faith. I mean, I seem to remember these were all like big deals in previous games. Now we've just got like Roger the cabin boy can just do all of that without any explanation. I mean, it's better get explained.
My goodness, you're an agile chap.
Every finger's a fishhook. That's how you tell a true sailor.
Oh, well, that's all just fine and dandy, isn't it? I could do all of this parkour malarkey because I'm good on boats. So, Kenway chases down the assassin using all of his yachting skills and dispatches him in a matter of seconds. Then, while searching the body, he finds some sort of MacGuffin and a letter that conveniently tells him where to go in Havana and that they will pay him loads and loads of money if he brings them the MacGuffin. Oh, and they don't know what he looks like, but that's cool because they'll recognise his funny clothes. And with that, Kenway is an assassin in everything bar name. I guess clothes really do make us the man. I mean, like literally, from that point on, you're hiding in bushes and dropping guys like they're hot. Oh, and stalking people using eagle vision and eavesdropping on them from 50 feet away. I mean, when you do actually rendezvous with the guys who conveniently only know you by who your tailor is, I mean, you have to perform a hidden blade demonstration for them. I mean, like stealth kills, kills from bales of hell. I mean, even air assassinations. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to the first island, and we meet some fat dude called Steve Bonnet, who just also happens to have a ship but needs a captain. So with that, in less than 10 minutes, a gunner on a private airship has become both a fully trained member of the Assassin's Order and a captain of his own ship. I mean, am I wrong in thinking that there might be a bit more to it than that? You know, like maybe some sort of training program or something. Anyway, no sooner have you set sail than you're immediately pulled away from the action and start playing a walking simulator instead. So I mean, this is the obligatory modern day section of Black Flag, and I've got to admire Ubisoft's bottle with this one. When fans complained that the Desmond Miles bits were boring, rather than maybe expand on those bits with some more mechanics or a deeper plot or better voice acting, they were like, boring? Boring? You think that's boring? Alright, well how about a walking sim, following some smug self-important bint walking through some sort of hipster office block where you get to like meet other pricks as well. Oh, and guess what? We've proper half-arsed that. We have these little cutscenes midway through the waffle, and they're first person too, but like really awkward transitions between them and the bits that you control, and it like completely breaks all hopes of any immersion. Oh, and it also significantly reduces the amount of work that our animators have to do. Haha, in your face! Like seriously, this office is my nightmare. This is what I imagine Google must be like. Loads of hipsters walking around sniffing their own farts and using words like problematic. Check out this, quote, IT wizard working on your Animus. You know he's a technician because she said so, and because he's got a toolbox with him. But I mean, he's wearing skinny fit jeans and a zip-up tracksuit top. What a dick. Anyway. Ubisoft, Abstergo, are now making dumbed-down historical video games out of all the memories that they're processing, in a way to help both fund and further their oppressive, controlling globalist agenda. You are a tiny little cog in their machine of world domination. Thankfully, after about 7.5 minutes of that, we can get back to being a pirate again. But not until we have a splash screen telling you the name of the game that you've been playing for the past half an hour. So back now with Kenway and his chubby chum, and we've finally arrived at Havana. After altogether too much pissing about, tutorialising, buying stuff from traders, chasing people, fighting, even though by this point the game has forced us into 3 fights already, not to mention the occasional guard killing spree to raise some early game cash. We then have some tutorialising of the joys of following NPCs, eavesdropping and eagle vision, and pickpocketing, and finally we go up to meet the governor. You show off your shooting and assassination skills that you picked up from the local boat club, and then the main plot gets underway. You meet up with the head honcho Greybeard, one of the 3 musketeers, and some dude who's suffering from grayscale. You give them the magical MacGuffin that you were robbed earlier, and with that, you're admitted to the Templars. Greybeard then jabbers on about how the Templars are looking for something called the Observatory so that they can spy on everyone, and that they've kidnapped some guy called Roberts who knows the way. You go down to the docks to meet Roberts, played by Danny Trejo, and get attacked by assassins. Roberts escapes, you bring him back, you get drunk, and you then decide that you're going to take the observatory for yourself and sell it on and become uber rich. You sneak into the governor's compound at night to find that the jailbreak has already happened, and then you get sucker punched in the side of the head by the mountain. Greybeard blames you for the jailbreak and puts you onto a slave ship. You then break free from what have to be the crappiest restraints known to man. You get your gear back, you kill the guards, hightail it off with a newly freed pirate/slave crew, and so now Kenway is finally a pirate, and he owns his own ship, and the game opens up good and proper. The first point of interest you're shepherded towards is Nassau, a port town of pirates. It's here that we meet the game's history quota. We meet Edward Thatch, otherwise known as Blackbeard, who's absolutely barking and definitely going to die. Here we go. We meet a shady looking fellow called Ben Hornigold, who's probably going to betray them all.
We should take the king's pardon and salvage what dignity we own.
I'll be hanged before I surrender to that bobbin.
Check your head, Vane. We had here a rare opportunity, a chance to take something base and shape it into a government made and maintained by men of vision. But in 2 years, we pissed it away. I won't make that mistake again.
Obviously. We meet some guy who's obviously a girl pretending to be a guy.
I'll do what I can to distract and draw their attention. giving you a chance to cut them down. Ready?
Your name's not James, is it?
Called it! 3 for 3. Those were literally my thoughts the first time I played this game on the 360. I mean, the telegraphing of the story is so blatant, it's kind of insulting. I mean, that speaks to like the fundamental issue that I have with this game, and like the Assassin's Creed franchise at large. They're that focused on accessibility that every possible nuance is stripped away for fear of it going over someone's head, and you're left with this theme park ride where like the height requirement for admission is like 6 inches off the ground. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Blackbeard comes up with a plan to nick a Spanish galleon and scuttle it in the harbour of Nassau to act as a countermeasure from the authorities coming to retake the town. So after a bit of fighting about, you get on board when it's anchored in a small town and kill the captain/local governor, who just happens to be the musketeer bloke from before. I'm not entirely sure why a French governor would have a Spanish galleon, but anyway. You then get pulled out of the action again for some more walking sim action. This time it's up to the head douchebag's office, and then some junk about hacking other people's terminals, and you watch a snuff movie about Desmond Miles, which is surprisingly cathartic. Even better though is delivering said snuff film to his friends from the previous game. I mean, I'm not even joking. I'm guessing that's not the angle that Ubisoft were going for, but that is actually what happens. It's like, there you go guys, there's a video of your old pal Desmond being gutted like a fish by guys in hazmat suits. Enjoy! I mean, this is then followed by a flashback, reminding us again what Kenway's motivations are. He wants to earn enough money for him and his wife to have a good life. Got it. In the very next section of the game, Kenway inherits governorship of the goddamn town the galleon was in. I mean, so that should be like game over, right? Send for your wife and live happily ever after. I mean, you've got to tell me, like, he owns his own ship, he's got his own crew, he owns a port with a small town attached, and a chuffing great mansion on top of the cliffs with like a huge cellar and servants and gardens and like the lot. I mean, you can't tell me that the weather is better in Norfolk than it is in the Bahamas. I know there are going to be some people that are all like, oh, well, he doesn't own it, he's just squatting there. At some point, the French dude's family are going to want it back. It's like, so why does he spend thousands doing the place up and like thousands helping local businesses getting set up in the harbour? I mean, it's his town. Send a message to the UK. He's claimed the island for king and country, and he's got rid of the Spanish. And then there we go, set up some trade routes, job done. So, moving on, Gender Trender then asks you to meet they at some island somewhere for some unknown reason, which you do, and then suddenly all your weapons are disabled, for no explained reason. I mean, obviously it's because it's an assassin's island, and it would look a bit odd if you butchered 20 assassins on your way up to join in their cult. Kenway doesn't know that. I mean, these dudes mean literally nothing to him, and he's been offing guards left, right and centre, and he's never had a problem with it up to this point. So like, just a random change of heart that's never explained. So it turns out that she's been an assassin all along. She tries to get Kenway to join. Kenway doesn't want to. The assassins don't want him either. Then the British turn up, fighting ensues. Do you know what? That'll do with this plot. I'm pretty sure I've spent more time discussing this plot in this video than they actually did writing it. Kenway finds Rogers, they become buds for a bit until Rogers shows him where the observatory is. He then betrays Kenway, sells him to the British, the girl assassin dies in prison, Kenway gets drunk, Kenway kills Rogers, kills Scabby Face, kills Beard Face, joins the assassins and then gives them his mansion and town for some reason, finds out that his missus in the UK is dead and he has a daughter. Some random bird from a pub starts singing, roll credits! Oh, no, wait. Some junk about talking to a hologram head in the present, and the douchebag IT guy was Rogers, but in the present, and then he gets shot, and roll him! The Assassin's Creed franchise has relied on the same staples of gameplay and mechanics from game to game and for better for worse. Black Flag adds naval combat and sailing into the mix, but they never quite gel with the existing mechanics carried over from previous titles. This makes Black Flag feel very unfocused, with two very distinct personalities separated by geography, and every time they try to interact, it's kind of like mixing oil and water with a gun to your head. The franchise has always suffered from a duality in its player states, even in the base game, and this is something which they've never managed to overcome. In Black Flag, the period, the setting, and the aesthetic choices have all conspired to highlight every unresolved fault in the mechanics. The transition between the combat system and the out-of-combat movement system have never flowed particularly well, and when you're in one state, it's next to impossible to implement aspects of the other. This issue is brought into sharp focus with the shipboarding mechanic of Black Flag. I can't tell you how many times I've come a cropper because I've parkoured my way from my ship onto the enemy ship, run into a fight only to find out that Kenway is still in parkour mode and hasn't got his swords out. And as soon as you do get your weapons out, you're trapped in an invisible arc around whichever enemy you're closest to, with a complete and crippling lack of agency over which direction you're facing and where you can move. Add in the general clutter found on a ship's deck, such as cannons, crates, masts, riggings, changing elevations, stairs, railings, and 15 or 20 other people trying to kill each other, and it just becomes a completely unplayable mess. I mean, my favourite tactic when taking a ship was to use the deck guns followed by my pistols in the hope that I would never have to actually set foot on the enemy's ship, and thusly bypassing that whole sorry mess. The flip side of this is that when you're in the open area, without any ship's paraphernalia tripping you up, combat is ridiculously easy, and it makes it completely devoid of any challenge or fun. Then there's the cell system, which is the closest the franchise has come to having a polished mechanical system. Like, guards are alerted to your presence both through line of sight and noise, but they're also alerted by bodies on the ground. When the guards discover one of your victims, they will either investigate the surrounding area or they will run off to raise the alarm by ringing a bell. This either or approach, coupled with not every guard being immediately alerted within 10 square miles once you have been discovered, is a big improvement over previous titles. However, your chances of being discovered are increased exponentially by Kenway's ridiculously slippery controls. I mean, I'm not sure how it was that Nintendo were able to work out that the players might want control over both the height and the distance that Mario jumps way back in 1985, but somehow 28 years later Ubisoft haven't learnt this lesson. Every time you press the jump button, it's anyone's guess as to what Kenway is going to do. Will he jump a little way to the next ledge? Will he jump past that one to the fence that's a little way beyond it? Or will he just leap gracefully into oblivion at a 45-degree angle, fall 3 stories and land on the people you were trying to sneak past? Who knows, because the player sure as shit doesn't. Not to mention the ever-present climbing magnet, which means it is impossible to run past a wall, a fence, a tree, a box or a building without Kenway trying to mount the damn thing. And this is where the comparisons with AC2 really come to the forefront, and why AC2 did not suffer quite so badly at the hands of these same mechanics. Florence and Venice and the other areas in AC2 were considerably less cluttered, and what clutter they did have was always off to the edge and was factored into how Ezio was going to traverse the area. Due to the height of the buildings in AC2, there was effectively 3 levels of movement with various strengths and weaknesses between them all. You had the ground level, the mid level, and the rooftops. Now, due to the relatively low height of the buildings in Black Flag, there's next to no interplay between the ground and the rooftops. The ground is littered with people, stalls, fences, wells, and God knows whatever else, and the rooftops are a lot messier too. They're all smaller and more cramped affairs with far too many chimneys and changes in elevation, and prevent you from building up any sort of speed or flow, and it's just a complete mess. So with an environment that's not conducive to the mechanics of movement, an okay stealth system that was hampered by the terrible movement, and a tedious combat system, I spent most of my playthrough trying to come up with ways to avoid playing the Assassin's Creed part of the Assassin's Creed game. If I had a target to kill, I would stay at a distance and then hit them with the berserker darts so that he'd attack the other soldiers and then get killed that way. If I could run through a stealth section, I would, and if I was in a combat section, I would try everything I could to avoid actually fighting. A perfect example of this is the assassination of Benjamin Hornigold. This is one of the key antagonists of the game, and after betraying Kenway, exacting stabby revenge on him would be some sort of cathartic moment for the player. You track him down, and after a naval battle, his ship crashes on a deserted island. Well, judging by the optional objectives, I'm guessing the developers intended for the player to sneak past all of the guards, get up to a vantage point, and jump down on the unsuspecting Hornigold in the trademark AC stab him on top of the head way. I chose to make a beeline for the target, running past as many as I could, only killing those that didn't see me coming or who I thought might halt my swift progress, only went into cover if the game dragged me in because I got too close, and then took a pot shot at the top of his head from 50 feet away. All done in less than a minute and a half. Then there are the terrible following missions where you have to follow a target as they meander their way through the streets, stopping intermittently randomly to look behind them. Yet another mechanic universally despised and then carried over from game to game. This is also clumsily shoehorned into the naval mechanic in some of the game's worst missions. Then you've got the harpooning minigame, which is kind of fun but a little bit macabre, and don't get me started on the underwater exploration. You can tell that this game was professionally playtested, because the only person who would sign off on these sections is somebody who just sees video games as work. Finally, I'd like to discuss the presentation, and again, there are some good points and there are some utterly terrible points. Praise where praise is due, the level designers who worked on this game have made one of the best, most compelling world maps I have ever seen. There are coves, ruins, forts, castles, forests, oases, caves, beaches, islands, all of them look amazing. However, outside the usual collectathon of treasure, maps, glyphs, and God only knows what they do, there is nothing to do in this beautiful sandbox. You go to a new area, you do the viewpoint to reveal all the collectibles that are in that area, go to the icons, and then move on. There is literally no incentive to explore any nook or cranny, no matter how intriguing, because you know ahead of time there's nothing there. Oh, and by the way, I think they're stretching the definition of secret when it's a clearly labelled icon on your map. Not only is this a recurring issue with all Ubisoft sandboxes, both past and present, in Black Flag they doubled down on this mechanic with the fort system. The world map is sliced up into sections, each one with a fort that you have to capture. This then reveals all of the locations within that area, and then each location has a number of viewpoints as well. Fun! Then there's the clumsy way that things are tutorialised and handling of the one puzzle in the game. Take the very first section of the game for example. So we start off in the thick of the action with some dude's ship under attack, and we get our very first shot of an assassin being all stealthy, stood on a gangplank out in the open. Some dude starts shouting, "Kenway, take the wheel!" Judging by the on-screen prompts, we can assume that we are called Kenway and that we need to take control of the ship. No sooner do we get rid of these prompts, the game freezes and a dialogue box appears telling us about how to fire cannons. It then prompts you throughout the whole battle, hold left trigger to aim, press right trigger to shoot, use the right thumbstick to rotate the camera. Now, not to nitpick here, but your instruction was to take the wheel of the ship, a piece of apparatus most commonly used to steer the ship. At no point does it explain how to steer the ship or how to speed up or slow down. It just immediately starts telling you how to fire the cannons and how to look around. And it does that like 3 or 4 times. The one and only puzzle in the game consists of a match the colours. I mean, match the fucking colours. And we can't even be trusted to work that out without your companion jabbering at you to climb the sides, and I think these are counterweights. Okay, so have I finally been able to crystallise my thoughts on this game? Well, yes, I think I have. I hate this game. I hate it with a passion that burns like a sailor's piss after a week's shore leave. I hate it with every fibre of my being, but not solely for the reasons mentioned already. All of those problems are merely symptoms, an outward manifestation of what it is I actually hate about this game. What I hate about this game is the lack of focus. When AC3 introduced the naval mechanics, I can remember quite a few reviewers saying how amazing it would be to have those mechanics being used in a modern AAA pirate game. What Ubisoft heard was make Assassin's Creed 4 a pirate game. So what we got is a game that did neither of them even remotely competently. The upgrading of your ship is a dumbed down affair where you just increase the armour level to, quote, give the jackdaw some resistance against large amounts of damage, or some other non-quantifiable statement. The crew you get are nameless singing stats with no purpose other than to count as hit points when you're boarding a ship. Your cargo list consists of just numbers at the top of the screen, with no indication of how much available space you have in the hold. It's just all superficial. You can't even sell your ship or buy a bigger one, and when you capture another vessel, you can send it to your fleet, but that just adds it to the menu in the terrible middle management sim. You never end up with a fleet of ships following you into battle with a hand-picked crew of characters that you have a relationship with, who might mutiny against you at any point because you didn't pay them fairly. It's a shallow, pirate-themed ride in a second-rate theme park. Unfortunately, that dictated where and when the Assassin's Creed half of this mongrel needed to be set. If Ubisoft wanted to save this franchise, they need to focus on what made the better installments work. Big buildings, narrow streets, and a compelling narrative. When the trailers came out for Unity, I actually had really high hopes for it. It looked like the focus had returned to the series, had like a large city, tall buildings, a potentially amazing setting, but I mean that one fell prey to different problems altogether. So here's the rub. Given Ubisoft's pool of very talented developers, the budget, the time constraints, the brief, could they have made Assassin's Creed Black Flag a better game? Probably not. But could they have made a much better Assassin's Creed game, or could they have made a much better pirate game? That's without a shadow of a doubt. Hey guys, thanks a lot for hanging around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video. I had a lot to get off my chest with that one. That was a long one. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. There's content constantly going up on this channel. And what did you all think about it? And what did everyone think of Assassin's Creed Origins? I still haven't got anywhere near it, and I don't think I will do, but maybe you can change my mind. And which one do you think is the best Assassin's Creed game? It's number 2, just so you're aware it's number 2. But anyway, it'd be great to hear from you all. Alright, thanks a lot for hanging around, guys. Take it easy. See you later. Bye bye.